Very good afternoon, one and all present here. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizer and the principal and the organizing committee members, and my special thanks to Dr. Tilaga, who actually invited me and who referred my name to present a special lecture on this day. And thanks to the madam who introduced me in a nice manner. Actually, it is very difficult to be here because it's a post-lunch session, that to the last session of this 3 days program. After having a heavy lunch, we are here. So somewhat difficult, I know. Difficult not only to you, to me also. So even then I try to present my field of research, particularly in the field of DNA barcoding of marine species. I hope you all cooperate with me and please be patient. No other go. Okay. The topic which I have selected for this gathering is DNA barcoding, a molecular tool for the species identification. For the past 2.5 days, you have been taught various techniques, principles, and hands-on training regarding the molecular biology and the molecular techniques. You might have studied and you might have been given training regarding the various techniques like DNA isolation from plants or plasmid preparation, gel documentation, then agrogel electrophoresis. So many molecular techniques you might have learned and you might have given the hands-on training also. And this is another recently emerged molecular technique, that is DNA barcoding. And this technique is maybe otherwise called a molecular taxonomy. Molecular taxonomy. We know the taxonomy, it is based on the morphological structure and anatomical features. We will identify the species based on the conventional taxonomy. Right from the Aristotle and Linnaeus, they followed the so many taxonomic keys and procedures based on the studying morphological characters, morphological structures. So based on these structures only they identified and described the species. It's a conventional taxonomy. There are so many limitations in the conventional taxonomy which every professional taxonomist facing the limitations, bottlenecks, hurdles, so many things they are facing till today while following the morphology based taxonomy to identify any species. So with these difficulties, these limitations, hurdles, signal the professional taxonomists and other molecular biologists to switch over from the conventional taxonomy to a molecular level identification of species. That is nothing but a DNA barcoding. It's a molecular taxonomy of species identification. So what is the importance of the molecular based identification of species as against the conventional taxonomy? So taxonomy, you know, it is a very dry subject. No one will come forward to study the taxonomy. You can see the taxonomist. If you see the appearance of taxonomist, you can understand. Very old man with full of white hairs, beard, like that. He will be like that. The taxonomist, professional taxonomist. They have to spend hours together in the lab itself. They have to dedicate their life to describe a species. So such a very dry subject, nowadays the new generations will never come forward to study the the conventional taxonomy or to identify the any kind of species of interest. Suppose if you are interested to do any research in the plant or fish or whatever may be the organism. Suppose you collect the new species or you collect the very rare species, first you have to identify what it is and what the species is. So for which what we will do actually, we will refer any our seniors or guide or any other scientist, or we will go through the Google or any other thing, any other matters we will go through, and finally we will come to the conclusion that oh, this is this species. But you are not sure that whether it is actually exactly that species. You cannot identify. Non-taxonomists cannot identify species by following the morphology-based taxonomy. It's very difficult. Even the professional taxonomists, they have to study the different characters, they have to go through the taxonomical keys and other references, then only they will come to conclusion and they will finally identify the species. So there are so many issues. Why we need to identify species? We will see one by one. So first we look into the diversity of life. It has been approximately estimated that the Earth is provided with nearly 10 to 100 million species. Just estimated, not identified. So out of 10 to 100 million species, how much species so far we have documented is just 1.9 million species. Only 1.9 million species have been described taxonomically and documented. What about the rest of the species? So to identify 1.9 million species out of 10 to 100 million species, it took nearly 200 years, right from the Aristotelian Linnaeus. So by 200 years, we were able to identify only 1.9 million species out of 100. So see where we are. Why this happens? So this is the data which we collected from the IUCN. So the vertebrates, number of species totally identified so far, then invertebrate species, then plant species. Nearly 1.9 million species. So this is the graph. It shows the percentage of species identified. See the insight. Out of 2 million species, only 8 to 9 million species have been reported so far. And all the red shows the unidentified. Similarly, you can see the nematodes and viruses, negligible percentage identified. Vertebrates, protists. So this is the status of today's biodiversity and species identification level. See, we have a big challenge. Only 1.9 million species reported, identified out of 10 to 100 million species. So where we are, what we are going to do, how to solve these issues. See, this is the 1.9 million species reported, estimated 10 million species to 100 million species unidentified. It's a long, very big gap between the identified and unidentified species. Because species identification, actually the biodiversity, the wealth of the country is determined by the biodiversity. So biodiversity is one of the prime factors to determine the wealth of a country. So India is one among the 12 mega biodiverse countries. So we have a lot of biodiversity sources, but not properly identified, not properly utilized. This is our status. So the biodiversity determines all aspects of the life science studies, biodiversity underpins all the aspects of the research and study of life sciences. The taxonomy is the prime factor to describe, to recognize the diversity, biodiversity. So without taxonomy, without species identification, we cannot enjoy the biodiversity of our country or any other country. We are talking about the biodiversity rich country, Gulf of Mannar, Western Ghats, Eastern Ghats, everything we are talking about. But what species we have so far identified? How we are utilizing the species? The data is incomplete. So global biodiversity is being lost at an unprecedented rate. Global biodiversity is diminishing in an unprecedented rate as a result of human activities. The decision makers, how they decide where to establish the protected areas if they do not know what is to be protected. We have to give the data. These are the species reported from this region. These are the species are endangered. These are the species are economically valuable. These are species are highly vulnerable species. That data we like people should give to the government or policy makers. Then only they can make a policy to protect the what are the species to be protected. So without the knowledge of what are the species to be protected, the policy makers cannot do anything. Similarly, the regulators or species monitors, they identify and combat harmful invasive species if they cannot distinguish from the native species. It's a major, one of the major threat to the biodiversity is invasive species. Next to habitat destruction, invasive species. Invasive species, you know, entry of or intrusion of species from its native range. They may enter into the different geographical area. So that is called the invasive species. So due to the invasive species, we are losing our own diversity, our own native species. So one should able to differentiate the native species and alien species. So in India, we have our own species, native to India only. So we have to protect our own native species. But if we allow the invasive species, our own native species will be washed out because of the intrusion of the other species from other geographical locations. So nowadays there are many researchers, they are concentrating on the invasive status of the various species. Then how do the developing countries ensure that they reap the benefit of the use of the various species, that is actual biodiversity, if they do not know the biodiversity that is being used? That also we have to provide the data. These are the species which are highly valuable. These are the medicinal plants. These are the herbal plants. These are the fishes, edible fishes, protein-rich fishes. That data that we have to give. Then only they can say that, oh, this is the biodiversity rich area. So these are the species can be utilized. So without that knowledge, no one can do any, no one can gain any benefit from the biodiversity. Then what's the problem here? The taxonomy impediment. So the government itself, through the Convention on Biological Diversity, the government itself has acknowledged that the existence of taxonomic impediment to the sound management of biodiversity. So to manage the biodiversity, to monitor the biodiversity, it is the taxonomical impediment is a major factor. Taxonomy impediment means we are lacking behind the taxonomy. No taxonomy is available nowadays. Very, very rare. Professional taxonomist. non-taxonomist, para-taxonomist. So very few numbers, very few. We are lacking in the taxonomical, as a taxonomist. So the government itself recognizes no taxonomy. The taxonomy impediment is the major factor for the non-utilization of the biodiversity. Then the purpose of global taxonomic initiative is to remove or reduce this taxonomic impediments, the shortage of trained taxonomists and curators, the impact of these deficiencies have on our ability to conserve, use and share the biodiversity. Then identification of large species like your higher vertebrate, it is somewhat easy. Whereas identification of the lower organisms, invertebrates, insects, plants, it is very difficult, which requires the accurate skills. Only the professional taxonomists are able to identify the lower organisms, particularly the insects and the other plants. Most of them have not been categorized or given even the formal botanical or zoological name. Simple to use identification guides are very rare. So many taxonomy keys are available, but they are not updated. Once created 1843, these keys are generated, taxonomy keys. 1912, taxonomy keys developed. Till now, the same taxonomy keys we are following. No updates in the taxonomy keys. Taxonomic information is often in formats and languages that are not suitable. We cannot understand the taxonomic keys, the words which they use, which are using. It's very difficult to follow the non-taxonomists, the identification keys. Suppose if you are given the taxonomic keys, say 8 points or 10 points. The taxonomist can identify the species by following the taxonomic keys of the 8 points, but we cannot do, non-taxonomists cannot do. So such a language they are using. This is a drawbacks. The traditional taxonomy took 250 years to provide the description for less than quarter of the world species. I already told you in the beginning, 1.9 billion species only so far identified. So it took nearly 250 years to complete very small number of percentage of the species. Then morphological keys sometimes written by those who do not need and those who cannot use them. Suppose I derive the taxonomic keys. I don't need the keys. I can identify my own species because I developed the taxonomic keys. So I don't want my own taxonomic keys for identification. It is for non-taxonomists. If you follow my keys, you cannot follow the keys. So the keys as such, it is keys, but no use. So this is the pathetic conditions we are the taxonomists facing. Then the common limitations in the morphological based identification, that is dwelling number of taxonomies, very few numbers of taxonomies available throughout the world. For most of these species, no taxonomies available. For fish, insects, there are some taxonomies available. For certain cases like fungi and some worms, no taxonomies available. And few taxonomies, they are able to identify only less than 1,000 species throughout their life period. Then lack of collection effort is another important factor we are facing. Lack of collection effort. We have to go in depth in all geographical locations to explore these species. There are untapped regions. So we have to go nook and corner of the earth so that we will be able to explore these species. So taxonomy, the collection effort is very less. The uncertainty in species identification. Once a species is identified, if you go through the nomenclature and the identification systems of the species, you can see this species identified as so and so during the 1862. Then immediately 10 years later, the same species will be redescribed and given another name. Then 20 years later, another taxonomist rediscovered the same species and he gave some other name. And they are giving synonymous species. This is synonymous species. This is antonymous species. So there is uncertainty even in the identified species. Uncertainty is there. The limitations in the conventional taxonomies. When we use the conventional taxonomies, morphological characters or anatomical features, still there are so many limitations. We will see what are the limitations in the conventional taxonomy. See, these are two different species of butterfly. Morphologically different, but genetically similar species. Similarly, you see the another group of animal, see the morphologically different, but same species. Similarly, in the case of butterflies, moth, and in the case of the molluscans, there are so many confusions. These are all called the plasticity, morphological plasticity and the genetic variability. So the phenotypic plasticity and genetic variability, some cryptic species also. Identification is very difficult. Uncertain species, unnamed species. Okay, so now our problem. How do we complete the task of identifying the rest of the species? So these are the limitations, these are the drawbacks we are facing nowadays, and how to solve any other alternative method. So limitations in the conventional taxonomy signal the need for the new approach to speed up or to expedite the identification and accurate identification. So what is that is nothing but a molecular taxonomy, use of DNA or molecular marker. So that is called a molecular taxonomy or else DNA barcoding. So DNA barcoding is a new concept proposed during the 2003 by the Herbert Paul. He identified the many species using a molecular marker gene. The gene is cytochrome oxidase subunit 1 gene, which is present in the mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA. He used the mtDNA gene, particularly CO1 gene, as a molecular marker to identify the variety of species, number of species, more than 1,000 species, 10,000 species he identified based on the single molecular marker gene. This is a molecular taxonomy. So DNA barcode, it is similar to the, as usual we use the UPC, Universal Product Code. So barcode, we know the barcodes, the 10 different variables will be there, and each and every band and the bar will represent the characters of the particular product. This is a common, every product you can see the barcode, that is called Universal Product Code. Similarly, DNA barcode here, the gene, particularly the base pairs, only 4 base pairs. In the UPC, they use the 10 different variables, whereas in the DNA barcoding or molecular taxonomy only 4, A, T, G, C, that's it. So with the 4 base pairs, one can identify millions of species with the 4 base pairs only. That is called a sequencing, gene sequencing. So what is DNA barcoding? It is based on the use of short sequence. Short sequence, maximum of 658 base pairs of a single gene, CO1 gene. CO1 gene is a molecular marker gene with 658 base pairs, which is present in the mitochondrial DNA in all the cells. Then this is the DNA barcoding. It is a real science. It is scalable also. And it teaches many important biological concepts. The DNA barcoding is used not only for the identification of species, to describe the species, to derive the molecular phylogeny of the species, to delimit the species, to identify the boundary of species. There are so many biological concepts it covers. And combines lab work with bioinformatics. So we are going to deal with the sequences, gene sequences, and we are going to blast the sequences so many bioinformatics tools we are going to use for the conclusion of the DNA barcoding. It enables discovery and publications, discovery of new species, and it is accessible to the students who normally have no access to research. So nowadays it is very, students can easily identify their own species of interest by the molecular taxonomy. So within, if you are provided with a well-equipped laboratory, molecular lab, you can identify your own species within 4 hours. Within 4 hours, please. 99% with 99% accuracy. Just you need the PCR, primers, age, gel documentation, and a computer with the bioinformatics tools. That's it. Then origin of DNA barcoding. So long back, 40 years back, usually the proteins are the fish, eggs, and some other proteins from the various organisms. They used, proteins were used to discriminate the species. Then later, the ribosomal DNA were used to discriminate the species. And then in 1970s and 80s, mtDNA, that is mitochondrial DNA, whole genomic sequence of mitochondrial DNA was used. And recently, among the mitochondrial DNA, there are 18 different genes are there in the mitochondria. Among the 18 genes, the one gene called the CO1 gene, which is a molecular marker, universally accepted, recognized molecular marker for the identification of most of the species, particularly in all the invertebrates. All the invertebrates can be identified using the mtDNA CO1 gene. And the concept was first developed by the Carl Fuchs, who gave this concept first time, used rRNA as a molecular marker for the identification of species, that is Archaea, as a bacterial group. Later, the Paul Hebert, who is the father of the DNA barcoding, who introduced the concept DNA barcoding by using the CO1 gene as a molecular mark for the identification of varieties of species. So based after the concept of the DNA barcoding proposed by the Herbert Paul during 2003, a global project was established, that is under the Consortium for the Barcode of Life. International Consortium for Barcode of Life emerged. And this was emerged to develop the standard protocol for the DNA barcoding, how to do the procedures and protocols, standardized protocols there, and also to construct the comprehensive DNA barcoding library. So DNA barcoding library is nothing but the gene sequences of each species is deposited and it is maintained by the NCBA and the Barcode of Life Database Board. So from the gene library we can retrieve the sequences of the particular species so that we can identify by BLAST. I will tell you later. And based on the Consortium for the Barcode of Life and the International Barcode of Life, the project was initiated and established by the Herbert Paul in Canada. It is a large-scale collaborative program to build comprehensive barcode registry for the eukaryotic life. And this is the organization of the CBAR, Consortium for Barcode of Life, established in 2009 with a 200 plus member organization. 50 countries they have established, 35 member organizations from 20 plus developing countries. This is the data, international data. And these are the different Barcode of Life project in the various countries, like Norwegian Barcode of Life, European, Japan, Canadian, like that. So many